Wuji City, Kaiyuan High School. A bright light emanated from the cracks of the doors to the restroom 25. The guy inside was doing push-ups, counted to 100, and then he stood up and his bracelet started sparkling. He took off his hood and said that was enough for today. He needs to try again. He hopes this time something will change. A voice from the bracelet reported that it was discovered that student Su Lai was cultivating Kai, and statistics were currently being compiled. First the number reached 90, then 1000. Su Lai began to be surprised and the voice said that the purification of Kai had reached the 9999 level. The limits of the control measurement had been exceeded. An error has occurred. Strong energy began to emanate from Su Lai and he asked in surprise, really again? At the same moment there was an explosion and his clothes were torn. He tiredly grabbed his head and said that everything had exploded again. He looked at the broken bracelet and thought, what the hell? Is it possible to continue to lay the foundation after level 10? And he is already at level 9999. What time has this happened? Isn't this a fake or a defect? Suddenly a woman's voice came from behind the door. She called Su Lai and asked why the hell he was practicing there. What are these explosions again? Let him open the door. His time for privacy is over. Su Lai recognized the voice of Chief Lu Xing and opened the door. She stood in the aisle and asked dissatisfied, does he even know how many times other students complained to the teacher? She walked inside and asked if he knew how many she had stood up to for him in this place. If it weren't for her, after the first explosion in the shelter everything would have ended. She stopped in the middle of the room and noticed the broken equipment. She waved her hand in front of her nose, dispersing the smoke, and asked what he was practicing here. Su Lai replied that this was the 5th time the level detection device had exploded. She asked, well, what stage has he reached in cultivation? Su Lai replied that he had achieved Kai purification. She asked again, cleansing. Everyone else has already moved to the stage of laying the foundation, and he is still at the stage of purification. What is his level? Su Lai replied that it was level 10,000. She laughed and said that he doesn't even know how to lie. All beginners know that at the Kai purification stage there are only 10 levels, and above that there is already a laying stage. Su Lai remained silent and she wrote down in the document that he was at the stage of Kai purification. She said that he knows that they all need this solitude in order to get into a good university. Next month the martial arts university entrance exam will be held. Only students who have entered the foundation stage can register for the entrance exam. She sadly said that in other classes, almost everyone had already entered the foundation stage, but while they were under protection, outside the school, the number of monsters was growing every day. It has doubled since last year. According to experts, they are returning to a period of famine, and this time it will last at least 50 years. Once this period comes, the monsters will only become more ferocious, and their numbers will only grow. She is afraid that it will be difficult to cope with the current group of warriors alone. Therefore, starting from the entrance exams at school, students will have twice as many resources as before entering the university, and the time of study at the university will be reduced to 3 years. And applying to the martial arts university is even more difficult this time. Su Lai replied that he understood that if she had nothing more to say, then she could go. She turned away from him with displeasure and quickly left, muttering curses under her breath. Su Lai gritted his teeth in frustration, then slammed his fist on the wall and said that there was only a month left. If he couldn't advance to the foundation building stage, then he would definitely not be able to enter the martial arts university. The phone in his pocket rang and he saw that Lu Xing had sent him a message with a link to the martial arts forum website. This is a martial arts forum. The teacher said that if there is something he doesn't understand, he can look there. He went to the forum and wrote about his problem. Everyone else moved to the stage of laying the foundation after level 10, and he is already at the 10,000 level of purification. Why can't he move to the next stage yet? He asks them to help him with this issue and dispel his doubts. 10 minutes later, his post received only 6 views and Su Lai said with annoyance that his post after that was a sensation. What the heck? Maybe he is the only one in the world who has encountered this problem. Until now, when a person reaches level 10 in the Kai purification stage, a foundation is automatically created. This is the current law of the cultivation world, and it cannot be changed, so there must be something wrong. He threw the phone on the floor and thought that he felt that the aura in his body was really intensifying. But it was not concentrated in one point, it seemed to flow throughout his whole body. But is it possible? Is he a colander? Time passed. The loudspeaker announced to the teachers and students of the school that in 30 minutes there would be a meeting at the martial arts stadium. All the students immediately ran out of the school and headed towards the stadium. Among them there was a huge guy who was pushing everyone and telling them to let him pass. He ran forward and said that Uncle Ben only had 10% of his leg strength, and they could no longer keep up with him. If they want to be accepted into martial arts classes, then they must work hard. He ran past Su Lai and looked at him with a nasty grin, then he stopped right in front of him and blocked his way. He pointed his finger at it and asked, "Isn't this the former first place, Su Lai? He still looks so miserable." Su Lia smiled and asked, "Is his name Ju?" "What was there?" "Jiao Xia." The guy displeasedly told him, splashing saliva, that his name was Ju Tao. "Let him remember this." Su Lai called him Ju Xia and asked what he wanted from him. He remembered how he threw him to the ground and asked if he didn't get enough last time. Ju Tao began to grind his teeth with rage, and the girls who were standing behind began to whisper. One of them said that this week, Ju Tao constantly looked for Su Lai to compete, but he lost every time. "He's thick-skinned." Her friend asked if he was just a masochist. Ju Tao's friend heard this and whispered in his ear that he had spied the seclusion report. "This guy is still at the Kai purification stage." Ju Tao thought that he was still in the purification stage, but now he would see how brazen he was. He laughed, pointed his finger at him, and said that hardly anyone could imagine that their number one would become trash before the entrance exams. One of his friends said that he couldn't even build the foundation to lay the foundation. Now he would be crushed by the person who was at the third level of laying the foundation. Su Lai was surprised and thought, did this kid move from the purification stage to the third level of the establishment stage in 3 months? Other disciples asked, Su Lai's stage of purification. This is impossible. It looks like Ju Tao will win this time. Everyone knows that the refining stage can never defeat the establishment stage. Ju Tao asked with a smile. He heard that the strong always defeat the weak. These are the rules of this world. He remembered his teacher's words that he needed to keep trying. Maybe in a few years he would catch up with Su Lai. He became angrier and remembered the girl who refused him and said that she liked Su Lai better. After that, he grabbed Su Lai and said that he was ignored by the teachers. The girl he liked rejected him. It was all because of him. Because of him he suffered all this time. Su Lai threw his hand away from him and asked, maybe it was because he didn't try hard enough. What does he have to do with it? Ju Tao became even more angry and attacked him, telling him to pray that he would not see Uncle Ben again in his next life. Su Lai thought, this is the third level of the foundation stage. Quite powerful. Ju Tao hit him, but Su Lai parried his blow and Ju Tao's eyes began to fill with blood. After that he was thrown into the wall and he shouted that he was in pain. Ju Tao's friends immediately turned to him and asked if he was okay. Su Lai thought, didn't they say that the Kai refining stage could never surpass foundation laying? Then why did he suddenly fly away? The girls standing nearby asked, is this really their number one strength? Even at the Kai purification stage, he defeated a person at the establishment stage. Su Lai put on his hood and one of Ju Tao's friends asked, did he beat the man and run away? He will go and report everything to the teachers. Another guy pointed his finger at him and said that there are witnesses around here. Su Lai passed by the students and asked them, did they see him beat him? The students just shrugged their shoulders and replied that this was not so. Didn't Ju Tao fly away on his own? How can the purification stage defeat the establishment stage? Perhaps Ju Tao himself was hit and flew away. Su Lai walked away from them and thought that first they needed to go to a meeting, where maybe the teacher would answer his questions. As time passed, Su Lai walked through the school, where some of the students were flying with swords. He headed towards the portal and the flying loudspeaker wished student Su Lai good luck in passing the entrance exams. Su Lai thought that, however, if the problem with the foundation stage was not solved, it was unlikely that he would be able to enroll. He arrived at the training ground where the 100th entrance ceremony of Kaiyuan school was held. Su Lai said that he had finally arrived. He noticed his teacher, who was standing nearby, and greeted him. His teacher with a shiny bald head, the tutor of the third group of the third year of high school, is named Manhw. The teacher turned to him and asked how was the month. Su Lai scratched his head and replied that he had encountered a small problem. His teacher adjusted his glasses and said that he would now look at his progress during this time. He used his power to check and was surprised, thinking that the breathing was very dense. Not only he, but even the director was not able to do such a basic thing at this level. But why is he still in the Kai refining stage? Su Lai looked at his hair and said that he had heard that there had been a major breakthrough in technology recently. Wouldn't he like to try to save his hair? The teacher called him a brat and hit him in the face with a folder and said that instead of worrying about him, he should worry about himself first. The martial arts university met them, but there was only a month left before the start of the exams. Now he must overcome the Kai purification stage within 1 month and move on to the foundation stage. Otherwise he will have to change his specialty. And he doesn't need to worry so much, everything will work out on its own. After all, his future will not end in this place. As soon as the meeting ends, the testing of the kingdom begins. He can leave himself by saying any reason, because they don't know his cultivation base, and he doesn't need to tell them either. Su Lai wanted to say something, but the teacher interrupted him and said that he knew that he would not give up so easily. Let him tell him what level of purification he is at now. Su Lai replied that he was at level 10,000. His teacher was very surprised and asked what he just said. But suddenly they were interrupted by a sudden scream and a loud crash on the site. Someone shouted that they should help quickly. There is a wounded man here. Su Lai and his teacher ran towards the sounds and saw a girl lying on the ground. Sun Huid examined her and said that the injury was very serious. It seemed to be caused by someone at the peak of the formation stage. Su Lai asked, at the peak of the establishment stage. The others saw a bright flash in the sky and said to look there quickly. It's the director. Meanwhile, tired guards sat at the checkpoint. One of them yawned and said that he was tired to death. He didn't sleep last night. He told his colleague that he should watch him, he would take a little nap. His partner, sitting at the computer, said that it was actually working time. The man pulled his cap over his face and told him not to worry. The strongest gathered in the high school. It was unlikely that anything would happen. A group of people appeared outside the window. The security guard's partner jumped up from the table and pointed his finger at them and asked, "Are they local students?" Somehow he had not seen them before. Let them present their student cards. The man standing outside the window smiled and made his way inside with a roar, hit his head on the ground and said that apparently he had not been taught that strength is a ticket to any place. The security guard's partner was horrified to see this and reached for the walkie-talkie, thinking that this is not good. They should report this quickly. But one of the hooligans threw a pebble in his hand and then threw it at the guard's head and he froze forever. After that, the group passed through the checkpoint, and at this time the headmaster descended to his students on a golden sword. One of the disciples said that the ability to fly on the golden sword can only be achieved after achieving the golden pill. He hopes he can reach the golden pill as quickly as possible. The principal of Kaiyuan High School, Wu Defa, came down from the sword and saw the victim. She looked up at him and said only the name Jormugand. Then she lost consciousness and the director said that first let them help her. He walked to the center of the site and announced that they were suspending the 100th Martial Arts University entrance test ceremony. The students became worried and said that something serious must have happened for the ceremony to be interrupted, because this had not been done since the founding of Kaiyuan School. The girl said that she hoped it wouldn't affect their entrance exams. Wu Def stood up and told the students to keep a low profile. The school has just received news that the Order of Jormugand, operating in the city, has taken part in the sacrament. In order to ensure safety, they limit access to free exit from the school. He asks them not to be heroes. Each supervisor must ensure the safety of students. They need to follow all instructions in an organized manner. The students began to whisper, "The Order of Jormugand." They all began to scatter to the sides and one of them said that he had heard right. This is the same order that will even go over their heads just to achieve its goal. One of the students said in fear that it was them. He heard they don't hesitate to get rid of cultivators. How scary is that? Why did they come to Wuji City? Everything will be fine with them, right? Su Lai also wanted to leave, but suddenly someone grabbed his hand and he turned around, seeing Lu Zhang in front of him. He asked where she was going. She took him back and told him that it was due to his entrance exams. They came to a quiet place and she said that such an opportunity comes once in a lifetime. He asked, what other possibility? She showed him a poster and said that a reward was announced for this mission in the city of Wuji. The whole point is that Jormugand is planning to invade their school. If he catches them, the martial arts university will definitely see his strength. They will definitely accept him. Su Lai asked how did she know about this. He took the wanted poster from her hands and she said that her parents were law enforcement officers. They told her to be more observant. Let him not worry, she will find people who can help him. She whispered in his ear that they would divide the reward equally, thus everyone would remain in the black, because besides, he would definitely enter the martial arts university. She breathed into his ear and Su Lai, throwing the poster to the side, replied that he would not go. He wants to go back to the hostel. He thought that he was still in the Kai refining stage. If he went to fight such killers, he would definitely die. Does he look like a suicide? Lu Zun stamped her foot in dissatisfaction and said that it was so merciful of her, but he doesn't appreciate her kindness at all. He's just an idiot. Meanwhile, Zhu Tao's friend called out to Teacher Sun and said that things were really bad. The teacher ran up to him and asked what is it. The guy replied that Zhu Tao and Su Lai had a fight, several ribs were broken, they were vomiting blood, and in general they were left exhausted. Sun Huid asked, did they get help? Let him take him to them. The guy agreed and Sun Huid thought, Su Lai. He is still refining his Kai, he is clearly no match for Zhu Tao. Sun Huid summoned his sword and flew to his destination, grabbing the guy's hand. Meanwhile, in the boys' dorm in the third-year high school building, the man from Jormugand said that the current mission is that within 24 hours they need to kill the invigilator of the Kaiyuan school entrance exam. Wang Heapo. Ao Ma hugged the rest of the Jormugand members and said, he thinks this is a good place to hide, the teachers definitely won't think of looking for them here. Basically, they are the only ones responsible for this mission, judging by their cultivation base. Even if they stumble upon 5 or 6 teachers, they will still easily cope with them. Accordingly, they are also tough to handle as an observer. He pressed Wang He tighter and said that if the situation from the past was repeated and they allowed someone to leave, the consequences would be severe. He told them to get started and the others scattered around the dorm. Meanwhile, Sulai was sitting in his room and a new comment appeared under his post. He wanted to check this and thought that it would suggest that his post was becoming more popular. Comments were already being collected. Meanwhile, in the dormitory of the Martial Arts University, there was a guy sitting in room 101. He wrote a comment under Sulai's post. He greeted him and wrote that he was Manhw with a basic level of cultivation. He doesn't think he can be at the 10,000 level of purification he talks about. Sulai replied that he was telling the truth. Manhw wrote that first of all, he must understand that after reaching the 10th level of Kai refinement, no matter what skills he has, he will, in any case, form the foundations for cultivation. If he really has a 10,000 level like he says, then his energy must be inexhaustible. Sulai was surprised and thought, if this is so, then it turns out that he has a very large supply of energy. Is he invincible? Manhw wrote that, nevertheless, he suggests checking the reliability of the device with which he takes measurements. He finished writing the comments and laughed, thinking, why should he respond to these kinds of messages? Today's applicants are kind of crazy. At this time, Sulai put the phone on the table and thought that no one believed him. He left his room and walked along the corridor, thinking that it was somehow too quiet here. He had better go to a safe place in case the order of Jormungand showed up here. Sulai walked over to where Manhw was standing. Manhw noticed him and thought in fear, should there still be people here at this time? Who is this parasite? Sulai looked at him and thought, who is this guy? Why does he feel like he hasn't seen it before? Manhw thought that it was fortunate that he was wearing a school uniform, otherwise he would definitely have been caught. Sulai walked past him and thought that wearing a uniform like this would result in points being deducted. Manhw suddenly remembered his tattoo and abruptly covered his neck with his hand, thinking that he forgot to cover the tattoo. He must have recognized him. He called out to Sulai and said what he saw. Sulai thought, is it possible that he decided to quarrel with him? Just why? He calmly replied that he saw. Manhw pulled his jacket off his shoulder and said that in this case, there was no way out, he would have to kill him. Sulai noticed the energy emanating from him and Manhw attacked him, saying that he only had a level of Kai refining. If he encountered it, he would not be able to survive. Now Sulai saw his tattoo and thought, why does it look familiar to him? He realized that this was a sign from Jormungand and Manhw swung his hand to strike him. Sulai was scared, but quickly pulled aside and dodged. He turned around and saw that the shock wave rushed further down the corridor and broke through the wall. Sulai thought that he must be at the peak of foundation laying. If he hit him, he would die instantly. After that, Manhw attacked him again and Sulai thought that it was all over. He wouldn't even be able to defend himself properly. He gritted his teeth and suddenly his eyes glowed. Then there was a bright flash and Manhw was unable to strike. He was thrown away from Sulai, but managed to stay on his feet and thought, is he really at the Kai refinement level? Even among the representatives of the Golden Pill, he had not encountered such energy. He called out to him and then pulled off his t-shirt and asked how dare he behave like this while he was at the purification level. He made him angry. He exhaled hot air through his nostrils and then used the Meteor Lion Fist, attacking him with the thought that this time he would definitely kill him. Sulai covered his face with his hands and thought that he could only defend himself. Manhw struck again, but Sulai's strength prevented him from doing so, and he thought, what's going on? His strength seems to be consumed and he cannot move. Suddenly he was surprised and a guess came into his head. Did he really have endless energy? At the same moment, Sulai swung and attacked, hitting him in the face. Manhw flew away from him and Sulai was surprised, thinking, did he fly up? He ran closer and looked in surprise at Manhw, slammed into the wall and lying unconscious. Sulai examined him and asked in fear, what was wrong with him? This can't be. He started walking from side to side and thinking, how could he defeat the man with the foundation laid? There must be something wrong here. Is it really all because there is too much energy? He remembered a comment on the forum and thought that his blood had also begun to boil during the battle. If he took some medicine, then he thinks he could very well have had a myocardial infarction. He slammed his fist into his palm and said that's exactly how it is. He was just lucky. He better not leave him here in case his allies see him. He dragged him by the hair along the corridor and thought that first he would hide the body and then go to Teacher Sun to discuss everything. Meanwhile, Teacher Sun was heading to the teaching building. He landed and saw the injured Zhu Tao. His friend called out to the teacher and Sun Hui wondered in surprise what could cause such a destructive force. He took out a pill from his pocket and gave it to Zhu Tao and then asked him to tell him what happened. Zhu Tao felt better and said that he and Sulai had quarreled. He didn't think he would be serious, but when he realized everything, he was slammed into the wall. Sun Hui thought, a person with the third stage of foundation laying suffered from Kai refining. This is simply impossible. Suddenly Zhu Tao said that Sulai was still at the Kai refining level. How could he defeat Zhu Tao? He must have resorted to dastardly methods. He must deal with it. Sun Hue thought that he had been teaching them for 3 years already. Do they think he hasn't figured them out yet? They are capable of more than that. He said that first, let them take Zhu Tao to a safe place while he sorts everything out. Zhu Tao grinned as his friend said goodbye to the teacher and they left. Suddenly Sun Hue heard a woman behind him asking what happened. He turned around and, noticing the bandage on her shoulder, waved his hands and replied that nothing had happened, just a squabble between students. The woman said that the director has upgraded this mission to a rank. The killers have reached the 3rd level of laying the foundation. Besides, they have deadly weapons with them. Let them be careful. Sun Hue thought, a rank mission. There have been few rank missions in recent years. Jormungand must have prepared well. He went to the observation room and watched the video footage of Zhu Tao and Su Lai. Sun Hue thought that Zhu Tao knew that Su Lai had a problem. Besides, he used to be number 2. What kind of imbalance? He saw Su Lia throw Zhu Tao into the wall and thought, did he defeat Zhu Tao, who is at the 3rd foundation level? Sudden blow. In this case, a sudden flash of energy occurs, which leads to a critical energy value. A random impulse arises, thanks to which you can defeat an enemy whose rank is an order of magnitude higher than your own in just one blow, but there are very few such cases. There are several levels of cultivation: Kai purification, foundation laying, golden pill, yuaning, transformation, return, deliverance, Manhwa, and calamity. He turned off the recording and thought that Su Lai has good abilities. He needs to help him get into the martial arts university. At that same second, Xin Guang was climbing along the ceiling, holding a blade in his teeth. The blade flashed and Sun Hue saw it through the reflection on the screen. He tensed up, after which Xin Guang jumped on top of him, but Sun Hue used his strength and caught him off guard by punching him. The blade broke and Xin Guang landed nearby, saying that he originally just wanted to find some information in the observation room, but he didn't think he would meet anyone here. Sun Hue saw the tattoo on his neck and said that he was coming out. They pretended to be students to get in. Xin Guang rushed towards him and said that he could not leave him alive. Sun Hue used his strength and stood in a stance and then parried several blows, and when Xin Guang hit again, he called him a dead man and said that now he would become like a turtle. He swung, but Sun Hue had stopped his fist and Xin Guang was surprised, after which Sun Hue had accumulated strength in his hand and poked his body with his palm, throwing him into the wall. Blood sprayed out of Xin Guang's mouth and he thought that he was so strong, well, there was no other way. He took out several balls from his pocket and Sun Hue began to wait. Xin Guang swung and said that he was headless, he would get even with him later. He threw the balls on the floor and they exploded, forming a smoke screen. Xin Guang escaped and Sun Hue thought that he needed to report that the Jormungand had infiltrated the campus. Meanwhile in the hostel, Ma Jixang and Liang Yonghui stood in one of the rooms. Liang Yonghui lit his pipe and asked why Wang He had not returned yet. He lit a cigarette again and asked if he must have been discovered and killed. Ma Jixang replied displeasedly that he was a 9th rank cultivator, they couldn't just kill him. He headed towards the door and said that he would follow him. He went out and slammed the door behind him, tusking displeasedly, and said that he had only just reached the rank of the golden pill and he was already so brave. But it's okay, soon he and Wang He will catch up with him. He reached the fork and looked down the corridor, then his eyes were filled with horror as he saw the dead Wang He being dragged down the corridor by his hair by Su Lai, leaving a trail of blood. Ma Jixang's hands trembled and he thought that this guy must want to boast that he was able to defeat Wang He. It turns out that not everything is so calm. He hid around the corner and thought, what should he do? He thinks that he is definitely not a weakling since he was able to deal with Wang He alone. He is afraid that he will end up too. He nervously swallowed his saliva and reached into his pocket with the thought that this was all that was left. He took out a pistol from under his clothes and remembered the words of Ao Ma, who gave it to him. He said that this is the newest weapon developed by Jormungand. This absorbs spiritual power and then sharply throws it out, increasing the power of the blow several times compared to the normal power of cultivators. Ma Jixang smiled and thought that the force of the shot would be more powerful than during the golden pill period. He quickly jumped out from around the corner and thought that he would definitely defeat this kid. After that, a powerful force accumulated at the barrel of the revolver and a loud bang was heard. Everyone around felt this power in an instant, and at the same time the bullet flew towards Su Lai. Ma Jixang smiled, anticipating victory, but his joy did not last long. The bullet bounced off Su Lai's head into the wall, and then bounced off the wall and hit the floor right under Su Lai's feet. He stopped and took off his holy hood, thinking, what is this? He looked at the floor where the bullet hit and crouched down to take a closer look. He took the bullet and thought, where did this piece of iron come from? Meanwhile, outside the dormitory, the principal and teacher's son were talking. The director told him that he believes he also noticed the power fluctuations. He thinks this is the work of Jormungand. Sun Huid confirmed his words and said that he was attacked by one of them in the teaching building. It seems they are everywhere. Suddenly the director frowned, noticing someone in the bushes, and shouted, "Who is there?" Lu Xing, who realized that she had been noticed, looked out from the bushes and waved her hand to greet them. She approached them and Sun Huid asked how she ended up here. She replied that she was looking for Su Lai. She was afraid he might be in danger. Sun Huid asked in surprise, "Is she saying he is still in the dormitory?" The woman asked what should they do. He's probably already encountered members of the Jormungand. Sun Huid walked towards the dormitory and the director asked him not to act recklessly. A person who released such energy was at the golden pill stage, no less. Sun Huid replied that one of the students was still inside. He needed to help him. He thought that even if Su Lai used the same technique as when he fought Zhu Tao, his opponent was at the golden pill rank, so it would not help him. The director coughed into his fist and then stopped Sun Huid and said that as the director of this school, he couldn't leave it like that. He took out his sword and said that he will go ahead, the patrol will be behind, let them be very careful. Meanwhile, Ma Jixing stood still, unable to move, and beat his knee. While Su Lai was examining the bullet, he noticed a guy at the end of the corridor who was hitting his leg. He thought, did that person get it? He has a revolver in his hand. Did he intend to kill him? Ma Jixing continued to hit his knee and thought that he needed to move faster. He trembled with fear and thought that nothing had worked out. He needed to leave quickly. He will attack him, begin to torture him. His death will definitely not be painless. Su Lai thought, what is he doing? First he throws pieces of iron, then he hits himself. Does he really want him to run away from him? He clenched his hand into a fist and thought that he was grateful to him. He pointed his finger at him and shouted that he might not be able to defeat him, but he couldn't leave everything like that either. Ma Jixing became even more worried and Su Lai swung, thinking that he would use the same piece of iron to distract attention, and then immediately strike and defeat him. He threw a bullet at him and said that he was returning it to him. The bullet flew at Ma Jixing with enormous force and he mentally began to beg for help. A moment later he saw a bullet in front of him and thought, why can't he move? In an instant a bullet pierced his forehead and he died and then fell to the floor and his glasses broke. Su Lai thought, did he succeed? Maybe he has talents that he had not noticed before. He looked at the two corpses and thought that it was hard with one, but then another appeared. He noticed the revolver and ran closer. He looked at the weapon and thought it looked impressive. He should take it, maybe he'll use it later. At this time, Liang Yonghui was standing around the corner who saw everything that happened. He thought, what's wrong with this guy? How could he kill Wang He and Ma Jixing? Fighting face to face is certain death, but if he leaves, he will also die. Attacking on the sly is also risky. He wanted to use his power, but suddenly he heard voices coming from the stairs. Someone shouted that if there were any students upstairs, let them answer. Liang Yonghui thought that one of the holders of the golden pill had come. He had to leave. He quickly went up to the floor above, and the director and the others had just arrived at the floor where Su Lai was. He hid the revolver in his belt and thought, what should he do? Judging by the voice, this is the director. If they are here, they will think that one of the members of Jormungand. An idea occurred to him and he thought that he should just improvise. He dragged the corpses towards each other and thought that he needed to make it look as if they had attacked each other. He placed the corpses side by side and moved Wang He's hand to Ma Jixing's face and his hand to Wang He's chest. He looked at the work done and thought it was cool. At the same moment, the director jumped out from the corner and looked at Su Lai in surprise. He asked where he came from here, what was he even doing here? Su Lai awkwardly scratched the back of his head and laughed. At this time, the window on the floor above broke and Liang Yonghui jumped out of the building and landed successfully. He turned around and then touched the wall of the building and smiled evilly. Power began to emanate from his hand and his eyes began to glow. Images of everyone who was in the dormitory appeared and also an image of a monster appeared. A portal appeared inside the dormitory to uncharted lands, where monsters raged on the battlefield. One of the monsters killed another warrior and noticed the portal. It came closer and a huge red eye appeared in the portal. At this time, Su Lai stood in front of the corpses and asked the director, teacher and headman, did they come too? He thought it was all over, they would understand. The director approached the corpses and, seeing their poses, asked Su Lai, what is this? Su Lai twitched, then he turned around and saw the director's piercing gaze. He used his power and quickly turned to Su Lai, and he began to cover himself with his hands and said that this was a mistake. But the director's energy was pushed away from Su Lai and he thought that he was very scared. He was afraid the director might do something. Director Wu Dafa thought that Su Lai was still in the purification stage. He thought someone else was responsible for the death of these people. He calmed down and said to leave, otherwise he could be in danger at any moment. He reached out to the corpses and realized that they were at the stage of laying the foundation. Could someone kill both of them at once? He examined Wang He's body and realized that his body had not transformed. He ran his fingers over the wound on his chest and thought that he had been beaten often. He noticed purple, swollen veins on his arm and found out that he took nerve-stimulating machines all year round. The cause of death is a break in the soul. He walked up to the second corpse and looking at the hole on Ma Jixang's forehead, he thought that it was a fatal blow. The person who dealt this should be at the level of a golden pill, no less, which means Su Lai had nothing to do with it. He noticed the tattoo on his neck and said that they were members of Jormungand. He frowned and then stabbed his sword into the floor and thought that he should see if he could find some clues, because the Jormungand members wouldn't come here just like that. He adjusted his gloves and began to search the bodies. He found several pills and said that this was all wrong. Su Lai and Lu Xing looked at him and thought that he wasn't even stopping. The director put all the found pills into his inner pocket and Su Lai said that he was not entirely convincing. If he didn't need it, then let him give it to him. Maybe it will be useful to him. Wu Dafa noticed some kind of box in Wang He's pocket and took it out, asking, "Is this a tetragonal seal?" Apart from a specialist, no one else knows how to open it. The material is very hard, so it won't be possible to break it. He gave it to Sun Hueda and said that he would later send it to the laboratory where he could open it. Sun Hueda agreed and the director released the seal before the teacher could take it. It fell to the floor and rolled straight towards Su Lai's feet. He noticed this, and then the tetragonal seal slightly hit his shoe and broke into pieces. The director and the others were very surprised, and Sun Hueda thought, "Is Su Lai's energy really raging again?" Su Lai reached for the fragments and told the director that it was not him, it was itself. He noticed something among the pieces and thought, didn't they say it was difficult to open? Why then did it open so easily? He called out to the director and said there was a communicator inside. The director snatched it from his hands and said that the code was not particularly complicated. He thought he could figure it out easily. The light on the communicator turned green and it opened. A holographic message from the main Jormungand appeared in front of them, which was intended for the rest of the order. The hooded man said that after Huang Heabo, the entrance exam invigilator, came to Kaiyuan school, they should send 2 people to divert attention and kill the invigilator. The rest should destroy the energy collection tower according to the original plan, and let them just try to make a mistake. The message ended and the director said that Jormungand's target was not an observer. Their true mission is the destruction of the energy tower. These 2 are just puppets. Suddenly he realized that once the tower collapsed, about 60% of the buildings would be unusable since there would be no energy flowing into them. The energy stored in the tower will burst out with a force equivalent to an atomic bomb, spreading throughout the entire city. Their real target is Wuji City. Su Lai raised his hand and said that he had a question. If so, how could such important information end up in the hands of the wrong people? And Lu Xing agreed with him and said that the information could be faked to cause panic. The director replied that regardless of the authenticity, they must protect the tower. This is a matter of safety for the entire city. If they do nothing, all cultivators will fail. He remembered the sign of the Jormungand order and became angry, splashing out his powers. Su Lai and Lu Xing walked away and he thought that such power only came from the golden pill. After that, Director Wu Dafa took out his phone from his pocket and saw that his message had not been sent. He swore and said that nothing was being sent. Su Lai checked his phone and said that he also had no signal. Lu Xing also took out his phone and said that there really is no signal here. The patrol members also checked it and said that they did not understand what was wrong. The director told them to split up, and after that the patrol ran separately from them and Wu Dafa told them to hurry up and publish the news. The director reached the stairs and noticed a portal at the bottom and asked, "How can this be? The staircase down has disappeared." Su Lai wanted to take a step, but the director stopped him and told him not to go there. This must be Jormungand's tricks. They want to lure them into a trap and break contact with the outside world. First, they need to figure out if they can get to other places. They ran further, and at this time a monster with glowing red eyes began to crawl out of the portal. Some time passed, they all continued to run through the corridors and returned to where they met Su Lai. Lu Xun got scared and pointed her finger at the floor and said that there were no corpses. The director checked the place where the corpses lay and said that the floor was covered with dust, and besides, there was no blood. The bodies seemed to simply disappear, and in general they are now on the wrong floor. Lu Xing and Su Lai turned around and she asked what to do. They were definitely returning the same way. Su Lai and Lu Xing thought for a moment and then realized that the principal and teacher had disappeared and quickly turned around, exclaiming, "They are gone." Su Lai took Lu Xing's hand and she blushed and began to feel shy. Su Lai led her along and said that there was no principal and teacher's son. They should not be separated, they should stick together. Lu Xing thought, is there anyone? Should they stick together? She agreed, and at that time there was a monster on the ceiling that had been following them all this time. As soon as the beast approached them, it lowered its gaze to its prey and attacked, almost devouring the smiling Lu Xing. Su Lai noticed this and quickly pushed her aside. The monster tore her skirt and Su Lai and Lu Xing looked at it in fear, and then Su Lai shouted that they needed to run and led Lu Xing along. The monster chased them and Su Lai noticed the door to the room. They quickly ran inside, locked the door, and he told Lu Xing to hold out and they shouldn't let them in. Su Lai rolled the suitcase with Zhu Tao's signature to the door and Lu Xing helped him barricade the door. The monster continued to knock on the door but eventually stopped, and Su Lai and Lu Xing again held hands and sat on the floor to rest. Su Lai squeezed her hand tighter and said that they were safe. She is all right. She turned away from him in embarrassment and confirmed his words. Su Lai did not understand her reaction, and at this time 2 blue eyes appeared in the ventilation on the ceiling. The monster snuck into the ventilation and watched them from above. Unexpectedly, one of the dragons broke through the ventilation into their room, broke the bars and immediately attacked them. Lu Xing was afraid of this monster and clung to Su Lai. He takes out a revolver and thinks that he almost forgot. He doesn't quite understand how to use it. Most likely, he can only take full advantage of one thing. He points the gun at the dragon and a sphere of energy appears from the gun. He fires a very powerful shot that hits the dragon and makes a huge hole in the monster's body. The monster falls to the ground and Su Lai is happy with what he did. Lu Xing asks where he got such a thing. He says that he found it from the people from Jormungand. He forgot to give it to the director. However, what is it anyway? They look at the monster's body and say it's very creepy. Lu Xing says that this monster has sharp corners like the blades of a hilt. She realizes that it is the ancient horned dragon Astrocratops. Description: mobile body, head covered with protrusions, most often live in a group. She says that if she thinks correctly, then this monster is a horned dragon. Su Lai is surprised by this and asks how such a monster got here. Lu Xing says that it is a kind of social monster, so to speak. This means that there could be 5, 10 or even more of these monsters. They sit for a while and monsters pass by their room. Su Lai looks through the door's peephole and thinks that when there is only one monster left, they will have a chance to get out. He looks down and notices Lu Xing sitting silently and looking very sad. He says that she doesn't have to worry so much. He's confident that everything will be fine. Once they find the source of the dragons, it seems to him that they will be able to return the dorm to its original state and get out of here. Besides, didn't he just deal with the monster? She can calm down because he will not allow Jormungander's plans to come true. At the same time, somewhere near Kaiyuan's school, Xin Guang sneezes and asks how their plan is going there. Liang Yonghui says that Wang He and Ma Jixing are dead. Xin Guang was very surprised by what he said and asks how did this happen. He says that Wang He and Ma Jixing were too careless and underestimated the enemy. He makes Su Lai look more threatening than he is and says that he has never seen such strong people. He hopes that he will never meet him. Xin Guang was scared by his story. He takes out some kind of talisman and says that they definitely need to report everything. Liang Yonghui says that nothing can be said. If the commander finds out that they couldn't even deal with the student, then he will definitely be angry. Xin Guang asks what should they do. Liang Yonghui says that the fact is that he has not seen the commander in action. If they do not complete the task, then they will definitely be finished. He smiles and says that he shouldn't worry because he lured the director of Kaiyuan school and that student. Now nothing will stop them. If they complete the task, no one will even remember Wang He and Ma Jixing. He takes out a communicator with a hologram of the building and says that they must continue. At the same time, dragons pass through the school building. Su Lai eavesdrops while standing at the door. He opens the door and says they should start now. They knock down the door and he immediately got ready to shoot with a revolver. The dragon turns around and notices them. Su Lai fires a shot and cuts off the head of this dragon. Picture of activities in the hostel. On the 8th floor of the Sun Dihui and Wu Defa dormitory. On the 2nd floor of the dormitory are Su Lai and Lu Xing. And somewhere there is a portal. Sun Dihui says that the strange thing is that a lot of time has passed, but they still cannot decide on their location. Def is about to open the door and says that in any case, they need to find the students as quickly as possible. You never know, they are in danger. He continues to open the door and says that they are not yet able to resist the attacks. They notice several dragons in the open door and immediately gather their energy. Def puts up a shield of energy and blocks monster attacks. He tells the teacher that he will deal with it and he must move forward. Sun Dihui agrees. Wu Def directs his energy into his fist. He is attacked by one of the dragons. He hits this monster's head with a very strong blow and strikes again to finish off the monster. Sun Dihui uses his energy to chain the monster. Wu Def approaches this monster and says that he hasn't warmed up like this for a long time. They immediately kill the bound monster. At the same time, the student waves a stick in front of the dragon and tells him not to come near him. The monster strikes with its paw and destroys the stick that this student had. The guy covers himself with his hands and loudly calls for help. At the very last moment, someone shoots and destroys the monster's head. Su Lai says he should get up, he is safe now. The guy is shaking with fear but still opens his eyes. He sees Su Lai and Lu Xing in front of him. He bursts into tears and says that he is very glad that they are here too. He is very grateful to them for saving him. Su Lai is surprised and asks if he knows him. The guy says that he gave a speech at last year's commencement ceremony and has always been a role model. Su Lai asks, but why is he still in the dorm? Wasn't there a warning about moving to a safer place? The guy says that he overslept, and when he wanted to go out, he unexpectedly encountered a monster. Su Lai says he understands him, he should follow them and keep up. Some time later, the three of them walk through the corridors of the dorm. They find a portal that was located near the stairs. They look inside the portal together and are surprised at what they saw there. On the other side of the portal they see many large dragons. Su Lai says that he is telling these two that they should wait here. He will go ahead. If he doesn't come back, then they will have to run away and they don't need to wait for him. He gives the revolver to Lu Xing and says that she should take this. If they find themselves in a dangerous situation, then she will have to use it. She agrees and says he should take care of himself. Su Lai goes to the portal and thinks that he needs to be more careful. These dragons slept for a long time, but suddenly woke up. It seems that this portal is the main reason for the dragons appearing in the dorm. If you destroy the portal, then everything will return to its previous state. One of the dragons notices him and looks through the portal. This monster swings his hand with very strong energy and hits the dorm. Su Lai dodges this attack by jumping to the side and closely watches the monster's actions. Lu Xing and the guy are shocked by what is happening and very surprised. Su Lai slides across the floor while the other dragons sleep on the other side of the portal. He gets up and thinks that it seems that the portal does not transmit sounds. He needs to make a decision quickly, otherwise the monsters may wake up. He fills his fist with a lot of energy. He charges forward, swinging his fist. The dragon growls loudly and runs towards him. Su Lai strikes with strong energy. It didn't work and he wonders what just happened. Why did his power evaporate exactly at the moment when he touched the dragon? The monster strikes with its paw and pushes him into the wall. Lu Xing wonders what they should do. It seems that he is not his opponent. Su Lai was able to survive this attack and she thinks that she needs to calm down. He's in danger, she's the only one who can help him, so she shouldn't panic. Su Lai thinks that this monster is different from the previous ones. The outer shell cannot be penetrated with one's own strength. Its normal attack will not change anything. Lu Xun starts shooting, takes aim with his revolver and fires 3 shots. The monster shielded himself from these shots with his hand and looks at her menacingly. She asks how did this happen? It didn't work. Su Lai notices this and says that she should run away. Lu Xing shoots this monster and asks it not to resemble him. Su Lai grabs the monster's leg. The dragon continues to reach out to bite her, but just a little is missing and she survives. Su Lai holds the dragon and emits very strong energy. He says that his opponent is him, he shouldn't be distracted. His eyes light up with energy and his hair goes up. Su Lai pulls the dragon and says he will take him home. He throws this dragon into the portal with all his might and the other monsters are very surprised that the dragon flew next to them. The dragon slithered through the area inside the portal. Su Lai swings her fist and channels energy into her hand. He says that it is better for them to be on the other side of the portal from him. He strikes the portal and directs his energy into this strike. The portal begins to tighten due to the directed energy. Su Lai looks into the closing portal and says that now they are saying goodbye and he hopes that they will not see each other again. The monster strikes, but the portal manages to close. The dragon takes some time to realize what just happened and begins to scream loudly out of anger. Some time later in Kaiyuan near the sports ground, Liang Yonghui walks along the roof of the building and places some kind of device. He thinks that very soon they will know true power. Suddenly someone notices him and asks what course he is from. He turns towards the voice and looks at this man. Teacher Cheng Feng says all students had to evacuate. Wasn't he notified about this? What is he doing here? Liang Yonghui directs his energy into his left eye and says that this is very troublesome. He didn't mean to put much effort into it, but it seems like he has no other choice. Cheng Feng notices the snake tattoo on his neck and says that this person is from Jormungand, they need to notify others. Liang Yonghui shoots his energy between them and says that they still hope to be helped, but none of the Kaiyuan teachers are capable of anything. He uses dark flames that, through a high-speed punch, uses spiritual power to distort space and produce vibrations. He says that 2 insignificant people are very unlucky. Cheng Feng and Cheng Lu simultaneously stand in a stance, release energy through their hands and concentrate this energy at one point. They gather a large amount of energy in their hands, and releasing it they say that he should try this. Liang Yonghui is shocked by this and wonders if this is joint cultivation. Joint cultivation is a type of cultivation in which the powers of 2 or more people are combined to produce a powerful attack. The energy they release hits and causes a strong explosion. Liang Yonghui was pushed away by this explosion and he thinks that the previous technique required too much energy, and the dark flame also consumes a lot of energy. He does not have much energy left. Cheng Feng and Cheng Lu jump up together and he notices their silhouettes in the smoke. One of them strikes with his fist, but Liang Yonghui manages to dodge this attack. Cheng Lu immediately runs behind his brother and heads towards him. He spins up and channels his energy into his leg to attack. Liang Yonghui blocks this kick with his hands. Chang Feng runs up to him and grabs his brother by the shoulder. Liang Yonghui looks at them in surprise. He dodges Chang Feng's strong kick attack and thinks that everything is bad. Chang Lu immediately turns around and channels his energy into his fist. At the moment of impact, Liang Yonghui realizes that he will not be able to dodge. He looks at this blow with horror. However, he is saved by the fact that at the last moment Ao Ma lands between them, who immediately turns to the two teachers. Chang Feng is surprised by his appearance and asks, "Was there another one here?" Chang Lu channeled his energy into his fist and says there is nothing to be afraid of, he should just kill them. Ao Ma chuckled as he looked at him. He released his energy into the hand he raised above him. With a very fast blow of his fist, he cut Chang Lu in half. Chang Feng is shocked by this and calls him. He channels a large amount of energy into his fist and at the moment of impact says that he will be his opponent. Ao Ma says that it looks like he has decided to find his death. He delivers an incredibly powerful kick and sends energy through his body. Shocked by this, Chang Feng coughs up blood due to such a strong attack. Liang Yonghui is shocked by the appearance of the commander. This is Commander Jormungand, owner of the Golden Pill, Commander Ao Ma. At the same time to Kaiyuan dormitory, Su Lai falls to the floor and says that it is finally all over and this strange spiritual energy has disappeared. Def notices a message on his phone where it says that he has a payment arrears, he should replenish his account on time. He says that the signal has been restored and thinks that they have been locked here for too long. He doesn't even know how far Jormungander has progressed in their plans. They need to gather all the teachers as quickly as possible. He leaves and says that he must inform all the teachers to head to the tower immediately. Sun Dehui agrees with him. After some time, next to the energy collection tower, the 6 teachers gathered together using their swords to fly. Special teacher Lu Cheng says that it seems to her that everyone has already received the director's message. They need to guard the energy collection tower. Teacher Yuan Zhen says he understands. Jormungand members cannot be allowed to enter here. Lu Cheng asks Teacher Chen, has she contacted other teachers? Teacher Chen Ying says that Teacher Sun and the director are together, they are on patrol, and communication has been lost with the other two. At the same time, Ao Ma grabs Liang Yonghui by the throat and says that the two at the foundation stage almost defeated him. He is the most shameful member of Jormungander. Liang Yonghui tells the commander that he can explain everything to him. Just now, a student at the Kai purification level killed Wang He and Ma Jixang. If not for this, he would have completed the mission long ago. Ao Ma asks, just one person at the Kai refining stage killed those two who were at the foundation stage, does he really think that he will believe it? Liang Yonghui gasps and tries to escape from this grip. He asks the commander to give him one more chance. He takes out his communicator and says that everything is almost finished, only the energy collection tower remains. Ao Ma looks at him and says that it turns out he can still be useful. He snatches the communicator from his hand and lets go. He looks at the hologram and says that he is leaving the tower to him so he can make amends. Ao Ma smiles slightly while looking at Liang Yonghui. He pats him on the shoulder and looks at him with a kind face. His face changed sharply and he says that even if he dies, he must still plant the last bomb. Only in this case the task of Jormungander will be completed. Liang Yonghui shakes with fear and says that he understands everything. Ao Ma smiles and, placing her hand on his back, creates some kind of magic circle. Some time later near the Kaiyuan men's dormitory, Su Lai goes outside and calls principal and teacher Sun. Wu Def asks why he is alone and where is Lu Xing. He runs up to them and says that in the dormitory they came across another student. Lu Xing escorts him to a safe place and left him to report to them. Sun Dehui asks what happened in the dormitory. Was anyone injured? Su Lai says that everything is fine. They found a portal under the dorm building. After they destroyed it, the dorm returned to normal. Def wonders if there was a portal there. It seems that someone took advantage of the connection with space, in which case it is not surprising that monsters appeared everywhere. He stands on his golden sword and says that he did a good job. But it is time for him and Teacher Sun to go to the energy collection tower. They both fly away and say that he should hurry up and go to the safe zone. Su Lai runs away and thinks that it is too dangerous outside, so he needs to get to the safe zone as quickly as possible, because he does not want to meet the people from Jormungand again. At the same time, Xinguang sits on the roof of the building and wonders, is this a student in the period of Kai purification? He has the aura of Wang He. Was it really he who killed Yi and Ma Jixang? He jumps off the dorm building and lands on the ground. Su Lai heard this and asks who is there. Xinguang asks this guy why Wang He energy is coming from his body. Su Lai wonders, did he sense another person's energy coming from him? Is this guy a dog? Besides, who is Wang He? Is this one of the two he defeated? Xinguang claps his hands in front of him. He emits a strong aura and says that Wang He and Ma Jixang were too careless and he will not forgive him. Anyone who dared to disrupt their plan must die. Su Lai guessed that he was a member of Jormungander. A large cloud of energy gathers around him and he realizes that he can't see anything. It is not mist, but small particles produced from spiritual power. It seems as if he is surrounded by a barrier and cannot move. Xinguang thinks that each person's spiritual power is unique and it is not tied to people's cultivation methods and habits. Manhw was good at physical cultivation, so his scent is mixed with his sweat. He takes a very deep breath through his nose. He very quickly rushes to the attack and says that he has found it. He delivers a strong blow to the head very quickly. Blood starts flowing from his head and he asks how he managed to find him. Xinguang smiles with an evil look.